Hey everyone, for those that stumbled on this video looking for ways to learn how to prioritize and be more productive, then you're at the right place. Do you have a long to-do list and do you tend to procrastinate a lot? Well, no fear, you're going to learn some tips on how to effectively prioritize your tasks today with the Eisenhower Matrix. You can apply these tips for anything such as your day-to-day tasks at your job or even your dreams and aspirations. Alright, let's get into it. I hope you learned something new today. Okay, so the Eisenhower Matrix is something that was supposedly used by past US President Dwight D. Eisenhower. With the Eisenhower Matrix, you're essentially ranking and grouping tasks together by their importance and how urgent the task is. When you draw it out, you have 4 buckets to put your tasks in. Starting off, you have the high important and highly urgent tasks. These are the tasks you should do immediately and prioritize over all the others. Then you have the tasks that are urgent but not important. These are the tasks you should instead delegate to others since they're still urgent to get done, but they shouldn't take up too much of your time. Then you have the tasks that are of high importance but of low urgency. For these tasks, you'll want to schedule them for later. Make a note to yourself to get them done, and as the time to get them done approaches, they'll likely move into one of the other quadrants. And then finally, we have the tasks that are neither urgent or important. You let these tasks sit here until all the others are taken care of. Just so you're following along, I've labeled each quadrant with the order of importance that these different tasks should be done in. I've also gone ahead and listed some examples of different tasks that usually fit into each quadrant. Have a close look so you can get an idea for your own tasks and where they sit. So, the Eisenhower Matrix is great for getting your to-do list done and prioritizing tasks, but there are essentially 2 key flaws with the matrix. One of them being is, your tasks throughout the day are usually not set in stone, meaning that you may get an eager call from a client and your boss wants you to take care of it immediately. What does this do to all the other tasks that were urgent and important? Well, they may require you to delegate them off to other coworkers now since the new task is a new priority. Now this is where flaw number 2 comes in, and that is, the matrix was done in order to mirror the resources of someone like President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Someone at that position has tons of staff to his disposal to be able to help out when he has too many things to do and take care of. So unless you have staff to your disposal, then this quadrant is basically useless to you. By the way, here's a tip if that's the case and you find yourself drowning in work constantly. This would be the perfect case to talk to your manager to have them aware of the workload you're taking on and how hiring another person may make sense to have all the tasks completed each day. Having that level of self-awareness is great, and if you've been keeping up with writing down your to-do list, you then have something to show your manager when you talk to them about this. Hopefully this tip is helpful for a few others out there. Okay, so now you know how to organize your task with the Eisenhower Matrix, and you know the 2 flaws of it. Is the next step now to draw a bunch of Eisenhower matrices in your daily planner or notebook? Ideally it's not. You can just use a simple to-do list like I assume you always write down in a notebook or planner. After this video, when you start writing your to-do list, next to each task, you're going to want to add the numbers 1 through 4 in order of urgency and importance next to each task. Once you've done that, a lot of people usually think that since number 1 is the most important and urgent, they should start off there. The correct way would be to try and delegate any task you labeled as number 2. The time it takes to teach someone how to do it once will mean that in the future, you won't have to spend as much time delegating to them. If you don't have anyone to delegate to, then that means you're going to want to fit those tasks in other areas of your Eisenhower Matrix. This is where it may be tricky for some because if you can't make them a number 2, then that means they just become a number 1 and your work begins to pile up. You're going to want to start having to think strategically on where you allocate your time and resources depending on the task and how long each one takes. After you've delegated number 2 tasks, now it's time to schedule number 3 tasks. Remember, you want to schedule these or set a calendar reminder for yourself because in the future, these will likely be your number 1 priority tasks and you don't want to forget them. Once you've delegated and scheduled those tasks, you don't want to cross them off because they're not finished yet. So find a system that lets you know that. People usually put a check mark next to them, but I usually just circle them, whatever works for you. After you've taken care of that, now it's time for the number 1s. You have to think of the number 1 strategically, just like pretty much every other number. For example, if you have 3 number 1s that are all about sending out emails, you're going to likely want to group them into one session together since it involves the same tools and resources. You should also be factoring the time that each task takes. As an example, sending out an urgent email is much faster than submitting your taxes, so work around the length of time as well when you're doing these tasks. Finally, when you get around to it, you should be working on your number 4 tasks. A lot of times, these tasks will tend to pile up, and sooner or later you'll realize that you had the same number 4 on the list for weeks and months. What you'll want to do then is basically make those tasks a number 3 by having a note on your to-do list saying something like, review number 4 tasks by X date. This way you schedule them. You'll begin to see that with this strategy, you'll begin to clean up all those number 4 tasks. By the way, I appreciate everyone who took the time to watch this far. If you're interested in following my journey through self-improvement, be sure to look at some other videos or request a topic you'd like me to cover in a future video. So there you have it. This is how to use the Eisenhower Matrix and how to apply it to the real world. Now that you've watched this video, go out and tackle all your to-do lists and make yourself more efficient so you have more time to do other things. This was LSN Today. I hope you learned something new today.